Hey, this is Rick Kohler. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Criterium Tauscher Kronecker Professional Engineers. Today on this beautiful fall day, we're in Muttontown, Long Island on the North Shore. We're going to have one of our professional experts give us some advice on the structure of the home and the unique foundation of this home, again, because it's over 100 years old. What we want to identify here are some of the hot spots for this house. We've got a huge pine tree that is located right in the corner of the house, which is going to have a root base, which could have an impact on the foundation and actually allow water to seep in. We've also got to identify, are the gutters clean so that they're not overflowing into the window wells. The window wells are also a place where water can leach into the basement. And one of the other things that we notice over here are the leaders, the pipeways that run off the gutters, go into a dry well underground. So are they clear or are they clogged? If they're clogged and they're overflowing, that again can give us reason for water to seep into the basement. So we're going to talk to the client about maintaining these things and making sure that they keep an eye on these hot spots, and that's a good way for them to prevent any future water from coming into the basement. This is a perfect example of a hot spot in this cottage. You've got grading or a place here for water to pool. And then if you look over here, you can see that this is where the foundation of the house starts. So if water is going to pool here, it could really seep into the basement from this area. The other thing that's really interesting to take a look at is this is the leader from the gutter, and it runs into a well under here. So if this thing is clogged and water's overflowing, again, we're creating a situation where water can come into the basement. So we're going to want to talk to the client about keeping an eye on this area and making sure that things stay dry. This is another great example where we can show the client of an area that if we maintain it properly, we can prevent water from seeping into the basement. Now, any below grade room has the propensity of water coming into it. So we can't guarantee it with some of these maintenance items, but we can minimize it. And this again is a great example of that. We've got a gutter up here. And so it's really important that this gutter stays clean. If it doesn't, the water is going to overflow into this bed and then seep into the foundation. Now the good news is that these gutters are spotless and they've definitely been maintained, and that's a great thing for the client. This is a really interesting part of the house. What we had here was a tree that's probably about as old as this home, over 100 years old, that has a root system that runs into the foundation. And also right next to it is the window well. We know that in the basement, this area has experienced some water seepage in the past. Now this tree came down as a result of Superstorm Sandy, and we know that this is going to be a trouble area. Taking the stump out is really, really a big job. So even if they don't do it, probably storing any items on this side of the basement or this side of the house is not going to be recommended. So just as a FYI for the client, they know that this is going to be probably the most extreme hot spot of this cottage. This is the best part of the house. This is what we love the most because this is where you can see everything. This is the bones. We're in the basement. And from an engineering standpoint, we can see a lot about the house from down here. What's really interesting, again, remember, this is probably upwards of 100 years old, this cottage. And what's really interesting is, look at how clean this wall is. This actually was put on sometime later. They put a parging or concrete covering over this. So one of the reasons why we really need to get an expert in here, is somebody with a history of looking at houses of this age, is to understand is what is the real foundation behind this parging. We're back at the Muttontown cottage, and we brought one of our experts, Tony Greco, with us. Now Tony's got close to 40 years experience looking at houses and evaluating their structure, and we've asked him to come to the property, do a little bit of a walk around, and then also go into the basement and give us some comments on what he thinks is going on with a house that's plus 100 years old. So let's get to it. So, Tony, obviously we spoke to the client about some of the issues of this corner of the house. Maybe you could just kind of give us a little bit of a feedback on, what really stands out to you when you see the tree, the leader into the well, and the window well over here.
Oh, there's a lot of issues here, but more importantly is the gutter is improperly pitched. So as a result is that the water drips down, and that's why we got the window sill and frame rot that you can see, because both of them are contributing to it.
Right.
And then the water then drips down, causes extended corrosion on the steel lintel,
Right.
and then works its way into the basement through the window well. So we've got a whole host of problems with water. So these are great sources for leaks into the basement. The tree is an additional concern because during a blizzard or heavy snow condition, the snow lays on the branches, which will then rest on the roof. And as the wind blows, it actually will rip the shingles off the roof. So these kinds of trees, they're beautiful trees. When they were planted, they were nice and small,
Right.
and they look so cute, except they should have been about 10 feet further out.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, I mean, obviously, without taking the tree down, just making sure that it's trimmed properly and as far away from the house as possible.
That's one of the solutions. But obviously, our concern is that the tree is too close to the house, and you can see how it's lifting
Yep.
at this point in time, and eventually it will cause damage to the house.
Gotcha. Good stuff. So, Tony, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing here with regard to this area of the home.
All right, we see a series of situations because the tree obviously went down, but the stump is still here. The stump, as it's rotting, is ideal breeding area for carpenter ants and other wood-destroying insects. So it really needs to be ground out. In addition, I see these vines that are growing on the house, and this is nice to see. However, insects, carpenter ants, termites, use the vines as highways to get into the house itself. So even though we may have a termite treatment around the house, this can bypass that termite treatment. So we do recommend that the vines be properly removed from the house. And if you want vines, they can be installed on trellises so that they are away from the house and avoid the situation where they can enter the house at a different location than is typical with termites and carpenter ants.
That's good stuff. All right, Tony, last corner of the house. Give it to us. What do we got going on here?
Well, obviously they're using propane gas for cooking or other appliances in the house, but there's a concern here. And the concern is propane gas is heavier than air. And as such, if there's a gas leak, the gas settles to the ground. That's the reason why you can't have a window well within close proximity of the tank itself, because if there's a leak, the propane, which is heavier than air, will settle into the window well and then into the basement.
Gotcha.
And then if there's an ignition source, like the heating system goes off or somebody turns a light switch on, it will explode.
Got you.
Depending on the air mixture.
Any other concerns with regards to the well and water into the foundation in this area? I mean, obviously this is a bed. If the gutters are going to overflow and water is going to come down in here.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we have no gutters on the upper portion over here. Mm-hmm. Okay, even though it's a small roof, we are going to have water that's going to drip down, mm-hmm. and it's going to drain into the window well and then work its way into the basement.
Got you. Okay.
So this window well is going to cause us a various amount of situations that will need to be taken care of.
So we're down in the catacombs of this cottage, in the basement. Again, the bones, where we can see everything that's going on in terms of the structure and the effects of some of the things we talked about upstairs. So Tony, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you noticed coming down the stairs, what you noticed going on in the basement with regards to the structure, waterproofing, or the potential for water coming down here as well.
Well, there's a lot of issues that you have down here, which is nothing unusual with older homes, but they still need to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. We see various termite damage. As we were walking down the stairs, you felt that the stairs wasn't too secure, mm-hmm. and then you start seeing the termite damage around the stairs and mm-hmm. the supports for the stairs. We see temporary supports that are holding up the stairs and the framing for the stairs, and the steps themselves and the stringers are not exactly the most secure in the world. Mm-hmm. The hand railing is improper, right. So we got a whole slew of issues dealing with that. Starting with the basement, we talked about a lot of the items outside about leakage and seepage into the basement. But although we see all these watermarks and water stains, a good percentage of it is due to problems on the outside, mm-hmm. Where we are missing some gutters, improperly pitched gutters, window wells that act as drains and bring water into the basement area, improperly pitched grading around the house. And our experience is that solving those issues controls most of the water problems that we have in basements.
Mm-hmm. So again, keeping the gutters clean, keeping the grading away from the house, controlling some of the foliage around the house like we talked about.
That's right. And we find that controls most of the situations. Mm-hmm. Now, if you need a perfectly dry basement, then obviously we will go into waterproofing situations, whether actually wall waterproofing or French drain type of a system. So there's various other options. But by proper grading and controlling the exterior water sources, you probably solve a good 90% of the problems in the basement.
Right, and obviously since this basement is used mostly for storage and not for living space, then what we would recommend to the client is let's get all the stored material off the ground. Just, in the event they are going to get water down here, we can't mitigate the water, or we can't prevent the water from coming in 100%, but we can mitigate it or lessen the damage.
That's right. And also, when we're outside, we're looking at that electrical panel,
sure.
The electric meter, and we saw the corrosion. Well, if you look at the meter, the panel downstairs, even though the main panel is relatively new, if you look under it, you see this corrosion. Mm-hmm. That means the water from the outside has gotten into the panel itself and has caused corrosion.
Right.
Again, that's a fire hazard.
Sure.
And the whole panel may need to be replaced
right.
that you have downstairs in the basement.
Gotcha. That's good stuff. Good advice. Thanks a lot for coming out. We really appreciate it. Now, we know that there's no such thing as a perfect home, and every home has got its issues. But what I'd really like for you to do is give us really a priority or of concerns and issues as it relates to this house that you looked at.
Well, you know what? Our first concern, it's always fire concern and safety issues. So obviously the electrical system needs to be inspected by a licensed electrician right. and corrected, because obviously water and electricity are not a good situation. The other concern in terms of safety deals with the water that's entering the house, but not from the ground level, but from up above because as we were seeing in the basement, some of the main supports, the bones of this house, are rotting away.
Right.
And if we start losing that, it's going to be an expensive operation to correct those situations. Then the third area obviously deals with termites. But now this house has a termite system in place to protect the house itself. But now the damage that was caused in the past, the structural damage, and those supports that we saw in the basement need to be properly replaced.
Right, right. And then obviously the propane tank, the issue that it's so close to the house.
Definitely another safety issue. That is correct.
Right, okay, great. I really appreciate you coming out.
You're welcome.
The client's going to be really happy. So that closes the books on this 100-year-old cottage in Muttontown. If you'd like us to visit your neighborhood and maybe even feature your house on House Docs, drop us a line at HouseDocsv.